Hello, Monetization Nation. Tim O'Reilly, the founder of O'Reilly Media, said, "What new technology does is create new opportunities to do a job that customers want done. Technology has created a new type of venture, digital ventures. As the internet and technology become more and more a part of our lives, it is essential that businesses take advantage of them." Brad Pace, my guest for today, has been a part of 8 successful digital ventures that we'll discuss in today's episode. Brad is a former business partner of mine. We were partners in a company called SocialNexus, where we did a lot of work creating digital ventures with Brazilian companies. He's also worked on many other successful digital ventures, including Ancestry.com, MyFamilycom, Aboutcom, Phoenicity, World Vital Records, and more. He's currently the president of TeamDial, and we will learn his stories and secrets right after this intro. Tectonic shifts are constantly transforming the earth and business, causing destruction and huge growth opportunities. I'm Nathan William, the host of Monetization Nation, where we learn how to leverage business tectonic shifts to transform monetization. I'm joined today with Brad Pace. And Brad Pace is a former business partner of mine, and I loved doing business with him. And Brad and I were partners in a consulting and digital development firm called SocialNexus. And during that time, we actually did a lot of work for Brazilian companies. And we'll talk about maybe some of the global implications of that. But in addition, working with me at SocialNexus, Brad has also worked at Novell, Ancestry.com, Aboutcom, Phoenicity, World Vital Records, Family Link, Partner Fusion, Travel Pass Group, Soar.com, and TeamDial. So Brad's got some amazing stories to tell, and we look forward to Brad sharing some of those stories with us today. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, it's good to be here.
Let's start at the beginning of your entrepreneurial journey, and maybe you can just tell us the stories here. Where do you consider the start? Would you go back to Novell? Would you go back to Ancestry?
So I graduated from the University of Utah with an electrical engineering degree and went right into corporate R&D at Novell, which was a great opportunity. That was the mid 90s. The internet was just starting to take off, doing some interesting things there. We were actually building one of the first, what we'd call a cloud-based platform today, clustering product for Novell. And so that was very interesting. But I heard about this new startup called Ancestry that was a genealogy magazine. They had just gone online in 1997 or something, and there was an opening for a developer. So I thought, well, I loved all the internet stuff. I'd already been doing some of it for Novell, and so I jumped in. And I was, I think, about maybe the 30th employee at Ancestry that was hired. So we started there. I was one of the first developers working on MyFamilycom, which, as you know, later became a top 10 web property. It was a subscription-based social family network, right? And so we launched MyFamilycom. And during that process, I helped build the first online family tree at Ancestry, which was very exciting.
And before you go forward, let's talk about a couple of these, because you've done some extremely exciting projects. So I remember that MyFamilycom project. I was a subscriber of that and became one of the top 10 most used internet sites. Can you tell me a little bit about what made that so successful and why it grew so quickly, and then maybe what happened to it? Why isn't it around today?
Well, so 2 words why it took off, and it was photo sharing. It was one of the first photo sharing sites on the internet. At the time, there was Myspace, which people really was the big social network at the time, and people were doing stuff on there. They weren't really sharing photos, but in MyFamilycom, we made it really easy to share photos between you and your extended family, and so people just loved that. And at the time, we had more photos shared on our network than anyone else on the internet. It was a subscription-based business at the time. As far as we could tell, it was the second largest subscription service on the internet. behind a particular adult website. So we had some really big successes there. It was interesting because as we got new VC money and new funding, the priority there kind of kept shifting, and for various reasons, they decided to pull away from the family social network and go all into genealogy, and then eventually to DNA testing and all the things that they do now. So
sure, when you hear people telling the story of social networks on the internet, they start off with Friendster, some of those early ones, but you had Friendster beat. Okay, let's talk about About.com. You went from Ancestry to About.com.
So we had been purchased. It was a company here in Utah that had been purchased by About.com, which was headquartered in New York City. In the year 2000, they were the huge thing, right? Like everyone went to About.com to get their information, and they had human curated content, and probably one of the top 5 internet properties, and so they bought us, make a free web hosting type company. So we had just hundreds of thousands of free websites that we were hosting, Bluehost or whatever, one of these virtual hosting systems. And what we were building at Biz Hosting was basically Wix or something like that, right? A point and click web builder to go with all of our hosting products. And so that was very exciting. It was fun to be on the product side of that, making product decisions, doing mock-ups, understanding usability and what people wanted to do and how they're, at that time we didn't have all the tools we have today for tracking and for analytics and, now we have this plethora of tools, and obviously then we didn't have that, and so it was more difficult, but I enjoyed that a lot. It was interesting as we interacted with About.com.
I remember those About.com days. That was the human curated search engine with expert content created. Instead of crawling and aggregating everybody else's content, they were trying to create it all themselves. Let's go to Phoenicity. I'm going to tell us a little bit more about what Phoenicity did.
Well, so Phoenicity is an online budgeting system, and we were one of the first ones to kind of bring if you know what envelope budgeting is, it's a traditional budgeting method where you'd actually take your money and you put it in envelopes and you say, I have an envelope for food and I have an envelope for my spending money and whatever, right? And you'd have these envelopes and you would have real money and you put it in there. And then people stopped using real money, cash money. And so we built a budgeting system around that mentality. And it worked really great and it was good. Again, the problem that they had was they did not have a platform mentality. At the point, we got to a certain point where we had so much data, we were connecting into people's bank accounts and actually scraping all of their financial information in so that they could budget with it. And they thought that the value in that was the subscription to use our software, when in actuality, the value in that was the data that we were collecting, right? So that we could do targeting. And what happened was, we were several years into that, a new company called Mint came in, offered the whole thing for free. They had a platform mentality. They understood the value of the data that they were collecting. And that's the end of the story.
Okay, let's move on to World Vital Records, another recurring revenue stream company that you built, another subscription.
So again, the founder of Ancestry, who is Paul Allen, not Microsoft Paul Allen, but Utah Paul Allen. And his non-compete had ended with Ancestry. He had left there and he had a 5-year non-compete or something. After that ended, he wanted to get back in the genealogy space. He loved it so much. And so he called me. I went in there. We were just a brand new startup. Again, we were doing a genealogy startup. This one was a little more interesting in that the difference between Ancestry and our genealogy startup was we were basically leasing the content. We weren't owning the content. And so there were a lot of genealogy content owners in the world that had their own like little mini site, right? Like, oh, I have one database of birth and death records in Argentina, and I've spent my whole life pulling this together, and I'm not going to sell it to Ancestry. Well, we came in with a model that was like, well, we're going to put it in our database, and we're going to pay you a percentage of our subscriptions based on the usage of your content. And so
you want to talk a little bit about what we pivoted to, the We're Related app, and kind of what that business model was?
Mm-hmm. So our CEO, Paul Allen, got invited to the launch of developer SDK that Facebook launched, right? And so Facebook had this great idea, hey, we're going to let third parties develop on our platform. And so people started, so they could develop all of these different apps, whether they were games or whatever. And so we were there when they announced that. And we quickly said, hey, we're going to build an app for Facebook to connect with families. Because at the time, on Facebook, you couldn't go in and say, this is my mom, and this is my dad, and this is my brother, and I'm going to group all of them together and communicate different messages to my family.
I'm not totally sure. The number that I remember is 60 million, and I remember we hit the 4th largest app install, but we could have hit more than that. It could, as it kept growing.
Yeah. So this is a perfect example of building a skyscraper on someone else's land, right? Because that's what we did. We launched this thing. I mean, on the very first day, we melted down our servers. We jumped to the Amazon cloud. We got the whole thing going. We scaled up to 60 million users. It was a huge success. We had offers from Disney to buy our app, right? Because we had so many people in there.
So there's multiple lessons there. Number one, if you're going to build a skyscraper, build it on land you own. Number two is if you are going to build on land someone else owns, you need to also build something on a different piece of land that you own. I can think of one more lesson that was learned too, that I learned from that is, every entrepreneur, it seems, believes their business is always going to go up. And almost by definition, entrepreneurs underestimate the risk that their business is going to go down. And especially that risk when you're dependent upon somebody else, another platform, something out of your control. Okay, do you want to talk a little bit about SocialNexus?
I like SocialNexus because, like you said, we were working with a lot of Brazilian companies and doing a lot of projects in Brazil, which for me later became key. The connections that I made in Brazil, and you and I already had connections to Brazil and both speak Portuguese and the whole thing, right? But at Travel Pass, I ended up using and building a team in Brazil with some of the same people that we used, and they're still there. We built a team of 30 developers in Brazil, and it became key to our business. And so that was one of the great things with SocialNexus. We got to do some really fun projects there, which I felt was great. I think that what we were doing there was fun in that we were funding our business by doing consulting work, and then using that money to put back into our business to build our own products. And so I thought that, a lot of people talk about that. We pulled that off. And, I think we're one of the few who could do that. The numbers, however many millions of dollars we spent on domain names alone to build a domain portfolio, and the assets that ended up being valuable to sell. And so that we could do both the consulting side and build our own product.
All right, talk to me about Partner Fusion for a bit and Travel Pass and the amazing projects you guys did there.
Okay. After we sold SocialNexus, I had some friends that I kind of worked with secondhand for a long time. We'd wanted to work together, and so that very next week, I went and had lunch with them, and they're like, "Hey, you're hired." And so I was one of the 6 founders of this new company. They had been a marketing agency doing a lot of agency work for different airlines and different Las Vegas shows and hotels and things, mostly in kind of that travel entertainment space. But but they wanted to pivot into to being an actual platform or a product company. And what Partner Fusion was basically an internet incubator. And so we had a whole bunch of little businesses under Partner Fusion. We had a hotel, we had a couple of hotel sites, we had an airline, selling airline ticket site. We had a show ticket site where we sell shows in Las Vegas. We even had like a health and nutrition site. Like we bounced a lot of things around. And like any good incubator, the ones that stick and the best ones are the ones that you run with. And so by far the best was in the hotel space. And so we spent all of our time selling hotel rooms and changed our name to Travel Pass. So we were selling hotel rooms through some of the big OTAs like Expedia and Priceline and Booking.com, and there's a whole bunch of wholesalers in that space that all have hotel inventory. And so we became an OTA, an online travel agency. We were having a lot of success. We were doubling our growth every year, and it was a really good business. Now, it's interesting because Travel Pass was probably 90% dependent on traffic from paid search. So we were really heavy into paid search, spending millions of dollars a day in Google on paid search. And do you know who the #1 buyer of Google AdWords is? Who their biggest advertiser is?
Amazon.
No, Booking.com. Booking.com buys more ads from Google than anyone else in the world. Okay. And that's who we're competing against. We're like, how can this little OTA compete against Booking.com? One, it was because we're scrappy and agile, right? We could move very quickly. Two, because we paid attention to some of these small details. We knew our customers, I think, better than anyone. And so we grew that business over the last, I left there last year, was there for over 8 years. And we grew that in about 4 years to be about a $450 million business. We were doing $450 million of bookings a year.
Wow.
We were doing more bookings for Expedia than any of their partners, including like Amex Travel and like some of these, big businesses. Usually doing, $1.5 million worth of hotel bookings every year, or every day, sorry, $1.5 million of hotel bookings a day. And so to accomplish that, we had to build a platform. And so we built a hotel booking platform because we realized that because we were basically the largest private OTA, everyone else had been bought, like Orbitz had been bought by Expedia, right? Kayak had been bought by Priceline. Booking.com got bought by Priceline, right? Like there's all of these companies were getting bought, and we were the largest kind of third-party OTA, which meant that we had the inventory of Booking.com and Priceline and Expedia and all of these wholesalers. And so our platform would combine all of this hotel inventory from wherever it was, and then pull it in, figure out who had the best price and the best rooms on a hotel, and then give that to our customers. And so instead of puking up, 500 results, 50 results on a hotel room like Kayak did. Now, there were a couple of other secrets in that business. One was, over the last 10 years, obviously when we started, all of our bookings were happening on desktop, right? And then as the shift to mobile moved, we'd have this quarterly business review with our Google team. And they're like, well, mobile searches are up. You've got to be on mobile searches. You got to be on mobile. And yeah, call centers in Latin America, and which I guess we would consider near shore, right? Call centers. And it was great because most of the people that we could hire in those call centers all lived or grew up in the US. and most of them had hardly any accent. And the few that did have an accent, it's much easier for people to understand a Latin accent than an Indian or some other accent. And so,
talk to me about soar.com. Soar.com is an expert coaching platform.
Soar.com is a couple of different things. Again, this was with my friend Paul Allen. So this is the third time that we came together on a startup, and so Paul had worked and had worked with a lot of coaches, and so what we wanted to do is we wanted to build a platform to help coaches run their business. There's a lot of individual coaches. I had never had a coach up until that point. It quickly became apparent to me the value of having a personal coach, whether that's a business coach or whether that's a fitness or a health coach, or whether that's a life coach or whatever, right? There's some really good information. What's that?
Or a Google paid ad coach, right?
Yeah. And so
skill you're wanting.
So we were building. So we built a platform for coaches to manage their business. Every coach kind of runs their business as a small business, and so we provided Zoom conferencing, we provided billing, we provided help with their marketing, we provided master classes to them. A lot of those coaches didn't know how to market their businesses properly or even understand who their target audience was, and so we were doing all of those types of things. At the same time, we had another part of Soar.com, or of Soar, that was based on voice technologies. We had an app in Alexa, and so we were building this app to provide the best information through voice technology, that you could get. And so we had all of this content that was all made available through Alexa. And so there's a whole business model there. We're still pursuing that on the Soar side. Any type of an app that would work for Alexa or for Google Voice or Microsoft Cortana or for Samsung, we're building applications for those. And so, and one of the reasons we got into that is we had a large contract with one of the top sales training companies in the world. They had all this content that would sit on their interweb somewhere, just hours and hours and hours of CD training and all of this like videos and voice and podcasts, and then none of their people would ever use it, right? And so what we did is made all of that available through an app for them, and so they could say, Alexa, what are the 4 sales techniques that I need to use? And it would go right into the audio that they were looking for. And so we had some really great voice kind of tagging and searching technology that we're using to make that happen. We had an interface where you could upload any of your own audio, and then you could, with a simple voice command, have it play it back. And so, for example, I uploaded a genealogy file of my great-great-grandfather at his 80th birthday that was recorded in the 60s, right? I uploaded it into our Soar app, and then we're sitting at the table with my dad, and I said, Dad, I said, Soar, play Grandpa Western, and all of a sudden Grandpa Western is singing his silly songs that he sang at his 80th birthday party. And it just was this really great moment. And so those are the types of things that we were doing at Soar, and it was really fun. But again, problems with fundraising and the virus. Now I'm working on a company called TeamDial, and again, a guy that I've always wanted to work with. They have a call center that they've been running for 8+ years, building technology for that call center. And I came in and said, we should make this software self-serve and let people just use it themselves. And so we're doing this new startup called TeamDial that will allow people to organize and make their outbound calls from their small team. So say you're an insurance agent and you have 5 people in your office, and you want to make sure that they're making those outbound calls that they need to. It's interesting because even with email and social media and texting and all these things, the best way to connect to customers is still through voice. And having a call from your insurance agent saying, hey, I need to meet with you to go over your policies, is still a great way to build those relationships. And so that's what I'm doing here. I've been doing this since June, and we're in startup mode. I'm the only person in my office here right now. And so I love the startup space, and I love the stuff we're doing. So.
Well, Brad, I wish you all of the success possible with your new venture. I'm sure it will be wildly successful. And I'm excited for you that you're president this time. I'm excited for you that you're the one leading the show and calling the shots. And I'm sure that'll work really well. Don't bet against Brad. And if people enjoyed this episode and they want to learn more about you and TeamDial, how can they best reach out to you?
Well, I'm on LinkedIn, linkedin.com/radpace, and my name without a B, radpace. And then just teamdial.com is our website, and we're just starting to sell it. And if you're a small business and need people to make some outbound calls, then this is the product for you. So that's it.
Thank you so much, Brad, for sharing your stories and knowledge with us today. Here are some of my key takeaways from this episode. Number 1, as Brad did with Phoenicity, we may be able to take something that works in the physical world and transfer it into the digital world. Number 2, as with the wheel-related Facebook app, we should build skyscrapers on land we own and avoid building our skyscrapers on leased land. Number 3, Brad and I both had connections to Brazil before doing SocialNexus. We can find successful concepts or products from one market and use our connections to take them to another market. This is called cool hunting. Number 4, just like Partner Fusion or Travel Pass tested many different verticals and then decided to focus on hotel bookings, we can also test different opportunities and then focus on the opportunity that proves the most successful. Number 5, we can add new product lines by selling coaching to our existing customers. If you enjoyed this interview and want to connect with Brad or his business, you can find a link to his LinkedIn profile on the blog post for this episode, or visit his company website at teamdial.com. Did you like today's episode? Then please follow these channels to receive free digital monetization content. Number 1, get a free monetization assessment of your business, or subscribe to the Monetization e-magazine at monetizationnation.com. Number 2, please subscribe to the Monetization Nation podcast or YouTube channel. Number 3, please follow Monetization Nation on Instagram and Twitter. Could cool hunting work for you? Is there a product or service that has proven successful in one market that you could take to another market? Please join our private Monetization Nation Facebook group and share your insights with other digital monetizers. And thanks for joining us for this episode. I hope you have a fabulous day. Do you want to become a better digital monetizer? To receive great monetization stories and secrets, please go to monetizationnation.com and join free. And if you liked today's episode, please subscribe to the show and share it.